Odin. It's his very first day. He's doing super good so far. I would say a couple of things that I've noted since he's been here. He seems to be really confident with his body, which is really great to see. That's really number one on our list with puppies, is just making sure that they are the most confident little versions of themselves that we can make them into. And obviously he's really interested in this food, which is another great thing to see. Having your puppy really motivated by food is helpful, and it's a very important thing to acquire if you don't have a very food motivated puppy. That's kind of step one. So obviously we don't have that issue with Odin. A couple of things that caught my attention in terms of things that we could potentially want to work on with him would be some separation anxiety potential there. It's really hard to necessarily read too much into behaviors, especially on day one. This is such a different new environment for him with lots of different smells and sounds and elements to his routine, such as crating, that he's just probably not super used to yet. So if I notice a couple of things on day one or even week one or week two, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's for sure the kind of dog he is or the kind of issues he's going to have as he grows up. But today I definitely noticed a level of anxiety anytime one of us leaves the room, even if it's just on the other side of a gate that he can see through, especially out of the door. And he was having a lot of trouble crating, which we already talked to Mom and we already knew about that. Crating is such an important part of raising puppies, even if it's not something we plan on utilizing forever. If it's not something we plan on utilizing when we leave the house, etc. If your puppy seems to do fine with not getting into things when you don't have your attention on them, you are of 1%. So an enormously important part of raising puppies is making sure that we are setting them up for success in our environment at home using baby gates and crates. So I imagine if we're not using a crate at home, or maybe you are and he's just not quite comfortable in it yet, we definitely need the ability to have him somewhere that's safe, that he's not going to not only get into something that's potentially harmful or dangerous, but also to prevent him from learning a bad behavior, like jumping up on a surface or a counter or a table, chewing on cords, that would be dangerous obviously, or just kind of learning a bad behavior, going to the bathroom on the floor, etc. So all of crates and baby gates are part of management. And I'm wondering if he might have to go out real quick. I just noticed him sniffing. Or you might have caught a good smell on the floor. So the other important part of crating, so if you use like a playpen at home, or you have a room in the house that you use instead of a crate, that's fine to a certain extent, unless your puppy really is struggling with any kind of separation, or what we call FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. So if your puppy really struggles with being in the vicinity of where you are but not being able to get to you, that's the kind of separation anxiety we're talking about. Also just the ability to settle and be calm while things are going on around your puppy, and not necessarily having them be a part of it. That is a humongous life skill that crating can help us achieve and accomplish. So our puppies, when they get into the crate, their job is to actually just rest, right? And use that time to get settled. So we're going to work on having him learn to do that, because right now he associates being in the crate with this is terrible, my life is going to end. He's definitely carrying on and barking and reaching vocal octaves that are oh my God, probably very hard to deal with, right? So we'll definitely work on that. Before we do, I want to make sure that he knows how to lure into sits and downs. So that brings us into our first skill that we're going to introduce in the puppy program to Odin. It's going to be what we call the food lure, and I have some food here in my hand and some treats actually. His treats, we have some of those really hard, kind of big milk bone looking treats, and those are actually kind of hard to use for training. So I actually already used most of his meal in his crate in what we call a Kong wobbler, to kind of help him give him something to do in the crate, to take his mind off of being in there. So I used up a lot of his food there, but I'm gonna use some of my treats, so hopefully he doesn't get an upset tummy or anything. But I'm gonna go ahead and put these treats in my hand. And he is very food motivated and a little bit chompy because he's hungry. So how you hold the food is gonna be really important. So I like to tell people to make sure that you are holding the treat kind of in this spongy part of your palm. Hopefully you can see that here. And so that's gonna require him to use his tongue a little bit more than his teeth, rather than feeding him duckbill style. That's just gonna give him a really big target to bite. So I wanna make sure that I'm not doing it like that, especially with those little baby shark teeth. That can be really no fun, right? All right, so food luring is how we guide our puppies physically into the positions we want them to be in. I'm not too worried about him diving into my treat pouch right now, but obviously eventually we're gonna learn some manners around that as well. So I want this food lure to look like a magnet to his nose. Good. I'm also gonna introduce what we call a good reward marker. So as I guide him a couple of steps in this direction, oh, he got my hand. Youch. Good. So we're gonna have to be really careful with how chompy he is, making sure that we work on that as he gets around kids and stuff. That can be a little bit, but again, when puppies are this age until they're done teething, I don't read too much into it. Doesn't mean he's gonna be a bitey dog at all. That's just something we're on the lookout for. So guiding him a couple steps to the left, good, and feeding. Guiding him a couple steps to the right, good, and feeding. And every time I'm saying good, I'm giving him that piece of food that's in my hand. And we call that a good reward marker. That's gonna be a word or sound. Nice, I got a little circle. It's the word or sound that we use to indicate, I like what you're doing. And eventually it's gonna be part of our communication system while we're training him. Good, perfect. So now that I got that little food lure going, that can be part of your homework if you want to get started before we meet up for class, is just practicing being able to lure him in any direction. A couple steps to the left, good. A couple steps to the right, good. And you can definitely use his kibbles, like his meal, instead of using treats necessarily. Those, I don't know if I finished that train of thought, but the milk bones are hard to use in training just because they're so big. It takes them a long time to crunch and chew. And we want to be able to feed him really quickly to capture the behaviors we're looking to teach. So I'm assuming he probably knows a lot of things. I remember talking to Kaylee about how much he knows. So he definitely knows sit. I have a feeling he might already know how to lay down, maybe. And just in case, good, he doesn't, we usually capture a down, okay, from a sitting position, but eventually we want to make sure that he can do it from a standing position so that down doesn't become sit then down. He understands down is down and sit as sit. So from the sitting position, if we lure him straight down to the floor slowly and then kind of start to move it out towards, and as soon as his little bum picks up, we're gonna just kind of move the food away until he sits back down, and then the food comes back to him. So he's licking this food, but I don't release the food until those elbows hit the floor. That bum pops up, I'm just gonna kind of reset. The food goes away if he pops up. The food comes back as soon as he's sitting down. And I'm just gonna kind of use my, good, I'm feeding him right here, good. Okay, do you mind looking and seeing if that camera's on correct for me?
Yep.
Thanks. All right, now he's getting there, good, perfect. So he might have known down already and I'm just doing it a little bit differently. That could be the case, but he's starting to get the idea now. Good, so I'm gonna kind of wait a second to see what he might offer if I stop feeding him. And if he kind of just gives up and goes away, we'll re-engage him. Good. Good. So holding onto that food, he's nibble, 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 lick, 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 but he's not actually getting any food until those elbows hit the floor. And so we're gonna spend some time making sure we can lure him into this position and get him to the point where he's starting to offer it almost on his own. And so that he's starting to find like, oh, this position pays really well. This is a very rewarding, reinforcing place to be. and you seem to like it, so I'm gonna offer it. Good. And that's gonna be helpful when we do crate training. So even though we wanna get that going really quickly, and we are working on that, obviously in between play and training sessions, he's going in the crate. And basically what's happening is, we're basically kind of, if he's carrying on, we're just kind of ignoring it and waiting for a quiet moment and reinforcing him for being quiet. Good. And definitely not letting him out, okay, of the crate when he's in the middle of a barking fit. He has to kind of be quiet while we walk all the way up to the crate. And so we'll take a little video of doing that, but a helpful thing for him to get a little bit further along with that is knowing how to physically find this position. So at some point, okay, good job. We'll talk about posture facilitated relaxation. So that's the idea that if the body's in a position of calm, the mind is more likely to follow. So if he's in his crate, standing, licking, jumping, barking, he's less likely to be calm. But if he goes into his crate and figures out, hey, when I go in here and I lay down, I get paid and I get let out a lot quicker. If his body spends a lot of time in that position, he's naturally actually going to start to relax on his own, and he's actually going to learn to get into his crate and be calm, quiet, and settled. Okay, he's already offering that position that we're looking for, that down. It'll be interesting to see what he does right here. Good. There, he's thinking about it. That's really nice. Good, I'm gonna help him out a little bit by just kind of bringing the food a little bit closer to the floor and seeing if that encourages him. Help him out a little bit more. Good, nice. So what I'll do now in this next step, now that he's getting there pretty well, I'll just kind of sit here and feed him and keep my rate of reinforcement nice and high. So as long as you're laying down there, I'll probably keep feeding you. Good, and that's how we build duration. Good. Okay. You'll hear me saying the word okay. I'm getting in the habit of releasing him from behaviors, and that's going to be another part of our communication system, which we'll talk about a little bit more when we get together. But basically what we're doing is building what we call our implied stay system. Stay gets built into all the behaviors we're going to end up teaching him, so we're just kind of getting that going now. The other skill, or I wouldn't say problem, but the other thing we're on the lookout with him for is jumping. He does have the tendency to be jumping up. So I want to make sure that, and of course he's doing really good with that right now, so that's awesome. As long as he's got 4 feet on the floor, I can go ahead and feed him. Oh, perfect. He's just going to be a perfect boy now. But that is something that we started working on with him from the get-go. I want to mention some stuff that he's doing really awesome. I already talked about his body confidence. He's jumping up onto surfaces, which is really great to see. He's got really decent proprioception, meaning he's got pretty good understanding of how his body works, which is really good to see with a puppy this age. Socially, he's doing fantastic with other dogs. He's met dogs that are little. He's met dogs that are very big. He's met dogs that are more playful. He's met some older dogs that don't want to play with puppies, and he's read that body language and given those dogs space. So he's very, very acclimated to socializing so far with other dogs. But the number one thing we want to make sure that we're doing with puppies at this age is not to just think of socialization. If we think of it like a pie chart, being around other dogs is a big part of that pie chart, but it's not the biggest portion. The most important thing that we can do right now with him is make sure that we positively expose him to surfaces, environments, places, sounds, cars, things that move, men with hats and beards, lots of different types of people with strollers, people with walkers, anything that he might encounter, as if we can introduce that to him at this age positively, which usually means pairing it with something like food, he's going to have a strong, confident association with those things and not be weirded out by them later on in life. Even if it's something new, the more new things he encounters at this age, the easier he's going to be able to cope with weird or strange things that happen to him as an adult. He's going to be like, oh, that was weird, but I'm cool because I've gone through enough experiences to know that things are generally okay when things happen, right? it's also going to build your bond together and help him orient to you when things happen in the environment. That's another really important thing that we're working on with puppies. And really those are the two things that I'm focusing on the most is, one, I want my puppy to associate me with all things good. I want to give my puppy everything that they want and love, and make sure that my puppy understands that that comes through this working relationship that we have together. He doesn't get anything for free. Everything that he loves and wants to do and enjoy comes from something I let him have or I release him to, so that he starts to look to me for that guidance and that almost kind of like permission. And I want him to associate me with all good things and have this orientation towards me when things are happening in the environment, so he doesn't get sucked into what's happening around him. He kind of has the ability to go, oh, that's happening. Hey, Mom, what's up? Or hey, Meg, what's up? Or whoever he's working with. Good job, honey. And then, of course, exposing him positively to all the different sounds, places, people, things. So obedience is really the back burner for puppies at this age. Even though we include it in our program and we do talk about it a lot, it's not one of my major, things that I want to focus on with a baby puppy this age. I want him to almost kind of be a punk at certain times, because I'm more concerned about him being a very confident version of himself than I am. The obedience can kind of all come later. So he's doing fantastic. We're going to keep working on luring him into that down position and having him find that reinforcing before we start to add it to the crate as well. So good job, Odin! Yay!